Greetings, everyone. Pete Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to day 26 of albums that are 40 years old in 2022 as we look back on the great year in music that was 1982. 28 days of February, 28 of my favorite picks. You'll also get a bonus episode at the end on day 28 with a whole bunch of honorable mentions because there's quite a few albums that I really like from 1982. Only 28 though could make the ultimate cut. Today, which is essentially my number 3 pick here at day 26. We talked about this one recently on the Hudson Valley Squares. Love this album to death. This was basically my introduction to this particular artist, this musician, this guitar player. He has been ever since one of my favorite guitar players of all time. Love him as a vocalist. Whether he's playing hard rock, blues, or fusion, the guy really moved me. I was absolutely destroyed, devastated when he passed away a number of years ago at way too young of an age. Of course, I'm talking about Corridors of Power from Gary Moore, the Irish guitar legend. Such a great, great player. Love him to death. Love this album. I told the story on the Hudson Valley Squares recently, but I remember the first time I heard Always Gonna Love You on the local rock radio station before this album was released. I was hooked. I was like, all right, it's kind of like a piano ballad type of thing, and then it gets a little heavier, and then the solo comes in and just completely slays you, and I love the vocals. And then I heard End of the World not long after, which is the heaviest song probably that he ever did. It's got all sorts of guitar pyrotechnics, and I was never the same after that. Never the same after that. And this is actually, it's his second studio album, but it's not the second album that he recorded. Because the weird thing about the Gary Moore catalog is you've got, Dirty Fingers was recorded in 1980. So technically, even though they didn't release it till 83, technically Dirty Fingers is the second album. But if you go by release dates, it's not. It's the third. And they actually put that out because that actually got held up, right? They never released it, and this album did fairly well, so they wanted to put something out. So while he was working on the follow-up Victims of the Future, they actually put out Dirty Fingers, but Dirty Fingers actually a couple years old by that point in time. Then you had the G-Force album, which is not really a Gary solo album. That's more of like a kind of a new band he put together that didn't work out. All sorts of crazy stuff the early part of the career of Gary Moore. And then, of course, In and Out of Thin Lizzy multiple times, right? But for this particular album, it's Gary on lead and rhythm guitars, all guitars, lead and backing vocals. You've got Tommy Iyer on keyboards, Neil Murray on bass guitar, Ian Pace on drums right there. Great lineup. You got John Sloman, little backing vocals here and there, because of course John Sloman was singing with Gary right before this time, around the Dirty Fingers time, so before this particular album, because at first, Gary was like not really thinking he was going to be the main singer in his band, but actually that's the way it turned out for, most of his career. Jack Bruce sings co-lead vocals on End of the World here. You got Bobby Cuisinart on drums on one track. Mo Foster plays bass on one track. You got Don Airey keyboards on one track. Jeff Glicksman produced the album. Jeff, of course, very notable producer, has worked on all sorts of great things over the years. But back to the album. Love this album. It's got a great mix of hard rockers, some like kind of metal stuff on here, a couple ballads, some moody pieces. Don't Take Me for a Loser is a great, catchy hard rock tune. Great guitar riff, great vocal, great solo. Always Gonna Love You, I mentioned before. You got Wishing Well, a killer cover of the great Free track. Gary just absolutely slays on that. Excuse me, early in the morning, man. That post-nasal drip, boy, I tell you. Gonna Break My Heart Again, another kind of radio-friendly AOR hard rock tune. Then you got Falling in Love with You, which is the one big kind of sappy ballad on the album, but it's kind of an alright song, right? Again, I've told this story before, but that was the song, back in the 80s, when you're young kid, young guy dating chicks, and you meet a woman and they find out that you're into like hard rock and metal, and they're like, I'm not really into that stuff. I like, whatever, pop music and new wave and all that, dance music or whatever. And you're like, I'll make a mixtape of some cool stuff that I listen to, right? So Falling in Love with You was always on every mixtape I ever made for any girl I dated back in the day. Because it's like, I love this guy, Gary Moore, great guitar player. Oh, he has this cool song. You might like this, right? Yeah. Didn't always work out that way. End of the World, like I said, great heavy song. just got the unaccompanied guitar solo at the beginning, a crazy solo in the middle with the dive bomb air raid stuff doing with his whammy bar. Just absolutely amazing stuff. You got Rockin' Every Night, Roll Until the Break of Day, really fast-paced rocker. You got Cold Hearted, which is kind of like a real moody, slower-paced kind of song. Again, killer guitar work, great guitar solo. And then one of my favorite songs on the album is the last one, I Can't Wait Until Tomorrow. It's kind of like this, kind of atmospheric, sort of a ballad that just keeps building and building and building. And it has a terrific guitar solo to end out the song that kind of like fades at the end. I always wish that it wouldn't have faded. It would have just kept going because it just kept getting better and better. And Gary, he's like totally going off and as it's fading. And I'm like, no, want to hear more. But yeah, just such a great, great album. And of course, many of you here in the U.S. are probably thinking, well, that doesn't look like the album that I had when I bought it off the racks. It was actually different. The U.S. release, this is the U.K. release. The U.S. release had Gary in like the the kind of the weird outfit with the it's like it's a Les Paul. It was a Les Paul. I'm trying to remember what the color was. It was more of kind of like a natural finish, like an unburst or something like that, with all the purple lights and everything behind him, and with the Gary Moore triangle logo right at the front. I'm actually looking here. Big Gary Moore Quarters of Power was on top, but the name was, and I remember like seeing that in the stores because as soon as I heard it on the radio, I was like, I got to go find that, and like, wow, look at this album cover, right? Quite frankly, I like this is cool too because corridors, right? This is this long corridor. But I think the cover of the U.S. is a little more striking. But here's Gary with his Fender guitar with the double humbucker. Anyway, yeah, great album. Really, really great album. And just to show you this. The discography of this guy, especially in the 80s, some really great albums. And you got the blues stuff, and yeah, what a loss, man. What a loss. Anyway, that is my pick for day 26. I'm getting emotional about thinking about Gary, man, how much I miss this guy. Just one of the greats of all time. One of the greatest guitar players who I think, the musician community knew how great he was. Those of us who really followed music and musicians know how great he was. But it's just a shame that the general public never kind of caught on to this guy. And it wasn't until he did, like, Still Got the Blues that people, like, kind of, like, really took a little bit of a notice, right? But it's just interesting if he was still alive today making music. You got guys like, Joe Bonamassa, Kenny Wayne Shepherd, and all these other dudes who have, really come into prominence over the last bunch of years. If Gary could have kind of fit in there on, that kind of level, like today, if he was still around. Who knows, right? Big what if. So anyway, Quarters of Power from Gary Moore from, September 1982. Produced by Jeff Glicksman, is my pick for day 26, essentially my album number 3 from 1982. Stay tuned for tomorrow. We've got day 27, my pick number 2, and then, of course, on Monday the 28th is my final pick of the month, my favorite album of 1982, plus you'll get a bonus episode of all sorts of honorable mentions. So thanks for watching, everybody. Let me know what you think of Gary Moore Quarters of Power, as well as your pick for today, 26th day of February. Visit us on the web at www.seatranquility.org. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, of course, we're here on YouTube all the damn time. Thanks for watching. See you tomorrow with another one. What else we got going on? Of course, we've got the UK Connection coming up this afternoon. Depending on where you are this afternoon here in the States. Do not miss this episode. It is one of the funniest episodes I have ever taken part on here on Sea of Tranquility, and certainly on the UK Connection. Simon Bray and Stephen Reed have totally brought it for this one. Our discussion is all about, you've seen who? These concerts we've seen in our lives where many people who know us would question us, either who is that band or artist you saw, or really you went to see them, that sort of thing. So it's storytelling time. So stay tuned for that. A lot of laughs. So crack open a cold one or your beverage of choice and settle down with us for an hour plus of some truly, truly enjoyable belly rolling good times. That's all I can kind of say, because I did a hell of a lot of laughing on this episode, so hopefully you will as well. So thanks for watching. We'll see you then on the UK Connection, and see you tomorrow morning with another episode of albums that are 40 years old in 1982. I'm Pete Pardo. Have a good weekend, everybody. Bye-bye.